Let me start by saying that you do not have to believe or accept the things that I say. This is true of every sermon that I preach, but it's especially true today. I tell you what I think and feel as clearly as possible, so you can weigh it against your own experience and perhaps become more clear in your own understanding. Our story for all ages about the seaweed and fungus and how they evolved into the first plants on dry land. I learned from Michael Dowd and Connie Barlow, the evangelists of evolution. And here, let's see. That is a picture of me in 2004 working with Reverend Craig Schwallenberg, pretending to be the fungus and the seaweed. Okay, show and tell. I find that a great story, and they call them parables. Barlow and Dowd write and collect modern day parables, which are stories that teach both scientific fact and meaningful life lessons. In the parable of the seaweed and fungus, the situation looks dire. Due to aggression, competition, and ecological catastrophe, our little seaweed hero is in mortal peril. Sort of reminds me of our planet right now. It would be great if we humans could learn and apply the lesson of the seaweed and fungus to cooperate. And if we cooperate, if we take that careful risk, we may avert catastrophe and take our next evolutionary leap to truly thrive in new and previously unimaginable ways. Rob Brezsny wrote, "In the new earth we're creating, we need lusty compassion and ecstatic duty, ingenious love and insurrectionary beauty. We need radical curiosity and reverent pranks, voracious listening and ferocious thanks. No matter how upside down it all may appear, we will have no fear, because we know this big secret: all of creation is conspiring to shower us with blessings. It's wetter than water, stronger than death, and truer than the news. It smells like cedar smoke in the autumn rain, and if you close your eyes right now, you can feel it shimmering like the aurora borealis in your organs and muscles. Its song is your blood's song." End quote. In other words, evolution is not merely a dry description of past events, it is an active impulse carrying us forward. As far back as the 4th century BCE, the Greek philosopher Democritus proposed that given enough time, nature will evolve toward order. Democritus and Lucretius both saw no need for a designing intelligence because order was an emergent property of life on Earth. Down the centuries, other thinkers, including Descartes and Kant, included self-organizing principles in their philosophies. More recently, philosophers of science have pointed out many instances of multiple independent discovery. For example, calculus was created by Isaac Newton, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, Pierre de Fermat, and others, all around the same time. Our Unitarian ancestor, Joseph Priestley, is often credited with discovering oxygen. Carl Wilhelm Scheele actually isolated it first, although Priestley published his findings more quickly. Poor Carl is sometimes called Hard Luck Scheele, because he identified a half-dozen other elements, only to see other scientists get the credit for their simultaneous efforts. Alexander Graham Bell and Elisha Gray filed for a patent on the telephone on the very same day in 1876, and Alfred Russel Wallace came up with a theory about natural selection shortly after Charles Darwin. They published together at that point. These and dozens and scores of other contemporaneous independent discoveries do not prove that evolution is following a script, but they do suggest that there is some synchronicity in our human evolution. And it's not just human evolution that seems to exhibit this self-organization. In everything from the growth of crystals to the behavior of some boiling liquids to swarms of insects and murmurations of birds, from cellular structures to high-tech computer networks, including the internet that we're on right now, even underground so-called black markets can be shown to demonstrate self-organizing patterns. One of my favorite examples of this is the emergent behavior of ant colonies. There are about 10,000 different species of ants, and one thing that they have in common is that there is no central command structure. There is a queen, but all she does is lay eggs all day. She doesn't have any contact with the vast majority of other ants, and the ants with which she does come in contact virtually never communicate with the ants that leave the nest to do the foraging or fighting. Dr. Deborah Gordon studies ants in the Arizona desert. She notes that the colonies live for about 15 years, although all the ants other than the queen live only a year or so. And yet the behavior of the colony changes over time, even though there are no ants that live that whole time, no long-lived grandparent ants to pass on wisdom to younger generations. Gordon and her team paint the ants so they can distinguish among them and track their activities from day to day. When the researchers perturb the ant society, like placing a pile of toothpicks along their foraging route, causing the colony to do more work, the ants change their behavior, and those changes persist for days or weeks after the perturbation, even though there are different ants doing the work and there's no database or hierarchy of control to direct their efforts. This is known as emergent behavior. Individual ants following their own very simple rules combine to create complex new behaviors in the colony at large. Other ant colonies have been shown to be quite aggressive when young, expanding their foraging borders and attacking ants from other colonies. And as the colony ages, they become less aggressive and less territorial, again, even though the individual ants do not know how old the colony is, nor even what most of their colony mates are doing. I find the concept of a creator or a supernatural guide, the idea of some implacable fate which directs our lives and circumstances, to be useful metaphors sometimes and not so useful at other times. I think our biosphere and our societies and cultures are adequately explained by accepting the emergent self-organizing behavior as an aspect and function of evolution. If we are all subroutines on a universal organic computer, if we all participate in one universal consciousness, then we are evolving together, and new, higher order, more complex behaviors may emerge through us at any time. Mind you, we still have the obligation to act. We have to choose to follow the evolutionary impulse. When the conditions arise to present the next potential emergent leap, we must cooperate and risk faithfully for the higher good. And with all the scientists, researchers, artists, activists, parents, and spiritual practitioners, with all of us doing what we can to make sense of our lives, conditions are ripening for the next step. Our world situation is dire. Let us pay close attention to the impulse of evolution, and let us seize the opportunity to self-organize into a much better world when we notice it on the horizon. So may we be.